Hello and welcome to the demo video for the tender calculator spreadsheet. And this is for, well, primarily for builders and trades, because I think this would kind of suit the way that they would usually do things. But actually, if you see how the layout works and it works for you, then it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. It is quite a useful tool, but it tackles things slightly differently. So instead of calculating labor charges and then calculating material charges and then adding them all up and putting a margin on and all the rest of it at the end, what this does is it allows you to create a complete list of works, whether they be labor, materials, both, or just labor or just materials, or however it is that it works, and allows you to put a percentage markup to each and every work, essentially, as well as the cost, implement, and time and all the rest of it. And then if you put the detailed prices in for each of these different works per unit, then when you multiply it out later on the spreadsheet, then knows exactly which category to put it in, what to put in as labor, etc., and can work all the values out for you. So let me go through how it works. This is the first tab, the intro and setup tab. They are up to 20, I think they are here. Yes, 20 categories that you can assign works to later on. So, for example, if this was in the building industry, you might have things like flooring or electrics or walls or whatever the different categories might be. But later on, you'll be able to assign all of your works to a category, one of those 20. So you can break it down there. It'll give you some price breakdowns later on if you kind of going, well, what are the electrics costing us, or what's the flooring costing us, or whatever the case might be. So you can break that down into categories. And then this is just simply to select the color scheme. So you've either got the default red and green, or you've got a grayscale or black and white. That's just for the quote. Because I realize not everyone wants their quotes to be in red and green. The colors of spreadsheet solutions, so you can change that. Once you set up those categories, we can go to the project setup. This is relatively straightforward. At the top here, you've got all the client details, the client name, project name, address, contact person, all that kind of thing, who the date of the quote and which revision it is. There are also some alerts here which will pop up later on. So if you fill things on other sheets and there's data missing or whatever, it will alert you here. And then lastly, for the setup, you can see here at the bottom, it's got those works categories from the intro and setup tab, and then it calculates, as I said, as you put in data, it'll calculate the values for each of them, so the materials, labor in each of those categorized, each of those works categories. But on this stage, what you do is you break up, once you put the client information, you can break up the quote into sections. So what I mean by sections are, for example, you might break it down into buildings. You might be doing 2 or 3 buildings on a plot of land, or you might break this down into rooms. You might break it down into floors. You might have a 5-story building and do 1 floor, each at a time. Or you may actually just do stages, stage 1 of the project, stage 2, stage 3. It really doesn't matter, as long as you can break them down into up to 15 groups. And then what you do then is you can put the section name, which is obviously a longer space, but then also put an abbreviated name. The reason for that is just on some of the pages, it's got the abbreviated header. And rather than squashing that text into a box, it just shows the abbreviation. So you can put something shorter in there. Just make sure that the section names and abbreviated names are all unique. So yeah, once you've got that, and as I said, later on, you'll see all the green headers are all formulated cells. So these values will calculate as you start adding items on. So those 2 sheets are set up per project. So each new project, you'd open up a new spreadsheet, and you'd set up the intro and setup tab, and you'd set up the project setup. Those are per project. There is one sheet that I'd suggest setting up before you even start a project, and that's this gray one. That's price list tab. And this price list basically fuels everything. This is where it gets all of its information from. This is where it gets a cost from. This is where it gets all the information to then go and generate the client quote and the detailed pricing, which I'll get onto next. So the way that this works is instead of, as I said, instead of adding on the labor and the markup and everything else afterwards, what it allows you to do is it allows you to enter up to 20,000 rows of works or materials. So works, for example, could be, if you're talking about flooring, it could be, you could put in, for example, tile flooring or whatever the case might be, or a specific category of tile or whatever it might be. And then you can say, well, that's per square meter. You can put in a unit, whatever these costs apply to, and then select which category it is. So if you've got a category called flooring, that would be it. And then the cost per unit, this is for the materials, the hour per unit, and the hourly rate and the markup. So for example, if you talk about per square meter, and if it costs £150 for a square meter of the tiles, you put in £150. If then you ask how many hours does it take to actually do that work, 2.5 hours, whatever the case might be, and what is the hourly rate of the person doing it, and you pop those values in. And then the markup percentage. This allows you to actually put individual markup on things, because one of the issues I was having when I was talking to builders and tradespeople and contractors and what have you, is that one of the issues they have is they don't just want to put a blanket markup on it, because some materials are really expensive, but it's really quick and easy to install, and other materials are obviously a lot cheaper, but it takes a lot longer to actually do the work, whatever the case might be. So they wanted to be able to create the markup. Now, yes, this might sound like a massively tedious task if you're going to go through every single works and put all these values in. But what you could do, for example, if you're listing a whole bunch of works and they're all in flooring and it's all the same markup, and you just put the markup in once and you just simply copy that, select all the others, right click and click paste values. And that'll just put that same margin throughout all the different categories. That's one of the reasons why I did the category, so that you can then come and you can click here and you can say sort A to Z, and you can sort by category so that you've got all the flooring together, all the electrics together, all whatever other categories you've assigned. The reason that works like this is because it's in such great detail how the spreadsheet can actually work out. If you say, for example, it's going to take an hour per meter or an hour per square meter or whatever the case might be, then the spreadsheet can work out when you say, well, I need 20 square meters, it knows what the cost is per square meter. It can work out the total cost. It knows how many hours it's going to take at what rate. So you can work out the labor rate, and then you can multiply those two by the markup in order to get the markup value. And it knows everything about that. If you want to add things that are just labor, so if you're not buying any materials, but there is a labor involved, you can just leave the materials blank, or if you need to put in a zero so that you know that you haven't missed it out. So if you get a new work material and it doesn't have any labor, you can just simply leave the labor out. You can leave the material cost out. You can put it as 0 hours and a 0 hourly rate, and then it doesn't include labor if it's just materials, whatever the case might be. So you've got flexibility here, and yes, it might take you a while to actually create this list, but this list essentially means that then everything else will be created when we make the selections, which I'll show you next. And it also means that if you've done a quote and you've already actually got a quote, and then it takes a while for the people to come back. When they do come back, if you realize that when the flooring has gone up in pricing or whatever the case might be quite drastically, you can just come and change the unit prices here. And then if you selected those anywhere else, it'll update the quote automatically. So what I would suggest doing is having a blank copy of the spreadsheet, keeping this list up to date, as accurate as possible. And then each time you do a new job, open this up, save it as a new project, fill in these first two tabs, make your selections, which we'll get to in a second. And then you've got all of your prices all ready to go. And if this list is up to date, then you don't have to come and fiddle with this. If you've done a quote and you updated the default price later on, and you open up an old quote in Excel and they want to requote, then you can just come to the new version of this. You can copy the whole batch, paste values into the old one, and it'll update all of the prices automatically that you've quoted. There is one thing that I just want to say when we're on the sheet. Once you fill this in, you can sort by these columns. That's perfect. Knock yourself out, sort it all. Once you're ready to actually do a new job, then sort by the work material and get all these in order before you start filling in these over here. The reason being is because when you start filling in all of these values here, the ones under the red headers will stay here. The ones under the green headers will change according to this pricing. So if you do add more, prices on to the list, if you add more prices on, then don't just come and copy this this sheet into the new one. Sorry, the price list. If you add more entries onto here, don't just copy the sheet into the new one. Like I said, if you've added more rows and if the data is if this list is exactly the same, then you can copy it across. But otherwise, don't just copy it across, because what will happen is if you've added some more works on and you've sorted it alphabetically, it'll pull straight through onto this work selections quote, and these values over here won't line up with the correct works. So I've done it like that on purpose, because otherwise you've got to paste all these things down here again. But this way it comes through automatically, but you don't want to be messing with it. So I have made a note at the top here saying, do not resort these once you've added values into the work selections tab. So you can resort, order, play around with it when it's ready. As soon as you start adding values onto here, then don't go back and resort or change the price list. You can change the prices here. You can change the cost. You can change the hours, hourly rate, markup, percentage, etc. But don't resort anything, reorder anything. So yeah, this is the work selections. Once you've got your price list set up, you've set it up for a new project with those first two tabs, all of your works and materials will be listed down the side, and all of the units will be listed over here. So you know exactly what those units are. And you can now go through the list, work down the list, and here you've got section 1, section 2. Those were the sections the abbreviated section names that we've got here, which means you can actually go through and say how many are in each of those. So if this was square meters of flooring, then how many square meters of flooring in section 1, how many of that in section 2, section 3, etc. If there's none, just leave it blank. And you just go down that list and fill in all of these numbers, the quantity for each of them as you're going down the list. And as you do that, it'll calculate A, the material cost throughout, B, the labor cost, markup, and the line value, which is obviously all three of those included, for each work material. And once you've filled all of those in, your two exportable sheets are complete. So the first one being the quote, it takes all the client details that you put in, it lists all the sections, it puts a value to each, and this value is a price per section, excluding VAT, but it includes your materials, labor, and markup. There it gives a total. This section at the bottom here, you can actually come in and type up, you can add all your terms and conditions. Here you can add text and various things that will obviously be on the quote. You'd likely set this up beforehand so that this is actually already done, so it's complete and ready to go. But you can add in notes and information, terms and conditions, things like that, just high level stuff to do with the quote. If you want to, and you can put a website link to more kind of detailed terms and conditions. But then this, you can actually save this as a PDF. So yeah, you'll be able to go to file. I've hidden the toolbar at the top, but you can go to file, save as PDF, save this as a PDF, and send that off to the client. And it's got a breakdown per section along with the total. If the client then comes back to you, or you would know specific clients, you need to be giving a detailed pricing. On the second tab is a detailed price, and this one will actually give the total of the project total at the top, but it'll list all of your works, and it'll give you the unit. Sorry, not all the works. It'll list all the works that you've assigned any value to. So if you've got works on the price list, but you haven't put any numbers across here, then it will exclude it. But all the valid works, put it that way, it'll show in the detailed pricing, along with how many units are required throughout the project, along with a line price and that running total. So you can see a breakdown for each and every unit works type. This is 10 pages long. It's about 600 rows, I think. Yep, 600 rows, 10 pages. So if you've got more than that, then it just says here batch number 1 of 1. If you had 650 rows, for example, it would say 1 of 2. So you could save 1 of 2, and then you could save 2 of 2 and send it over. So each one will save off in a kind of a batch of 10 pages saved to PDF. So you can save as many of those as are needed, and you can send it over to your client, and they can then have a complete breakdown of everything based on the works. So those are the two sheets of the quote, the normal quote, kind of high-level quotes, more detailed pricing. It all comes from the work selection, which comes from the price list. Now, usually I kind of do these videos as a finished product. This one, there might be some need for change. So if you do want this, or if you are interested in this, or if you purchase this, there's one thing I'm quite keen to know about, some feedback, and that is how often you need to change this price list and potentially reorder things. Because I've taken this straight through to the work selections, it means you can't resort it once you've got these numbers in. However, there's a different way of doing things, whereas actually it takes this, it doesn't automatically bring it through here, but it lets you reselect it over here. It's a quick way. It'll just be 2 columns down the left that you copy, paste values in, and then it does it. And then if you add on any new ones on the price list, it warns you here, and it tells you that they're new works and materials to select. Doing it that way means that you can actually resort this price list independently, and you can also resort this independently of the price list. Now, I might actually update this in order to be able to accommodate that. The only reason why I didn't do it initially was because it uses a bit of memory, and the spreadsheet's already quite large because of the 20,000 rows. So if you're finding that not being able to sort this is becoming a bit of a hassle because you're updating old jobs, whatever, with new prices, and you want to be able to just paste it in here and have it updated, then do let me know, because I can actually potentially update this one to be able to accommodate that. So I've gone with a simpler one to keep the size of the spreadsheet down at first, but I'm quite happy to look at updating that. But I just would like to get a bit of feedback. If you guys are using the price list to do a job, and then that's being filed, and you're not going back to update prices, whatever you, then it's probably a bit of a waste to actually do that, because it does increase a bit of kind of labor stuff to be able to copy it and paste it and what have you. This way is far more automated, but as I said, it does limit you not to be able to sort this data once you've started inputting numbers. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. The demo video is a little bit long-winded, but it needed some explanation. I hope that makes sense. If this works for you, I wish you all the best. And if you're looking at this going, well, hang on, this makes things a bit easier, but it's not quite right for my business, do get in touch, because I'm more than happy to discuss making a custom kind of solution for you like this, or even completely different. So yeah, do get in touch and let me know if that's what you need. Otherwise, I wish you all the best with the spreadsheet and your costing. Thank you very much, and goodbye.